17 Traditions, Ralph Nader Excerpt. In these times of widespread conformity and self-censorship, I find myself thinking back upon my childhood, recalling what made it special for me and for my brother and sisters. Recently, I found myself thinking that I should share these memories with others, in the hope that they might offer guidance and inspiration for the parents, children, and grandchildren of today. And what I hope will be especially helpful in this very different world we inhabit are my memories of the traditions in which my childhood was immersed, traditions that remain vivid in my mind and that guide me to this day. I am often asked what forces shaped me. Rather than trying to give a full answer to that question, which would take longer than a limited interview would allow, I often reply simply, I had a lucky choice of parents. My brother, 2 sisters, and I had a remarkable father and mother who cared for us in both direct and subtle ways. The examples of their lives set us on solid paths we have explored ever since. Among other things, my parents were responsible for passing down the traditions which they had learned from the generations before them. Traditions they refined and adapted to the unfamiliar country and culture to which they had emigrated early in the 20th century. These traditions arose from the received wisdom and customs they had learned during their own childhoods in Lebanon, elaborated by their own judgments, sensibilities, and changing circumstances. In turn, they were nourished by regular feedback from their acculturating children, which they encouraged. Mother and father each lived to be just short of a century old. We benefited from their many seasoned perspective and wisdoms for many, many years. They were forever young, exemplifying my mother's strong belief in the importance of remaining interested and interesting. And they succeeded in doing this throughout their lives, attracting ever younger friends to visit, whether we children were home or not. They created the strong family base from which my siblings and I sailed forth into the wider world, full of new experiences and high expectations. That base was, in part, a matter of locale. My parents made a conscious choice to move to Winsted, a small town nestled in the Litchfield Hills of northwestern Connecticut, where I was born in the middle of the Depression. Winsted was, and wasn't, a typical New England town. Through it ran the Mad River and the Still River, names by the settlers who arrived in those dense woods in the later part of the 18th century. Connecticut is dotted with such mill towns, which depended on the rivers to power their factories. Most of these towns were small, dominated by 1 or 2 large factories. Winsted, on the other hand, had spawned 100 factories and fabrication shops by 1900, and these factories in turn gave rise to homes, shops, and other businesses, including probably more drinking bars per square yard than any town east of the Mississippi.